Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 4 Plus, the show where we take nightmares and turn them into funny nightmares. If you remember a couple weeks ago, we did a review on the 28 Days Later franchise, and considering you guys took that well, we here at 4 Plus decided if we should probably take a look at other movies that have terrorized the theater near you. So, in the middle of the night while playing Persona 3, Reload that is, a certain movie dawned on me, and for the love of me, I can't think of why, but it did. That movie is called the Poughkeepsie Tapes. Good God, I hope I said that right. The movie was made by John Eric Dowdle, I think. Now, whatever, you guys can correct me. And it was released in 2008 after premiering at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2007. The movie, of course, was an indie film and presents itself in a mockumentary format, with found footage moments spliced in for viewer discomfort, and it follows the manhunt of a serial killer who makes home videos of his killings. Its reception, however, was mixed, as it split right down the middle among both audiences and critics on Rotten Tomatoes, otherwise known as the Bible of movie opinions. But what they can all agree on is that it's not for the faint of heart. And take that as your warning. There is a lot of disturbing content to be found in this movie, from murder, child abuse, child endangerment, suicide, sexual assault, and torture. So if you're sensitive to any of these topics, I would highly recommend turning this off and maybe watching something less harsh like, I don't know, Megan 2.0 if you just don't have any self-respect? But enough gab. It's time to take our seats and cuddle our pillows. Today, we dive into the Poughkeepsie Tapes. But before we continue, please remember to like, subscribe, and check out our socials below. Alright now, let's get this over with. Our movie opens with Simba roaring before we see footage of a funeral occurring. What looks to be home videos of a young girl are spliced in as we hear a man explain to us that in his 25 years of experience, this might be the most vile thing he has ever come across. We cut to night vision footage of what looks to be someone committing funeral derangements instead of arrangements, as he seems to pull the body from the grave with his truck. We cut back to our documentary format as the title appears, with photos of what's probably a sweet place to live if it weren't for this documentary, I imagine. It's safe to assume this was the house of the killer, as we get told there were a total of 240 hours of these tapes, and one man was tasked with watching all of it. I'm pretty sure One Piece isn't even that long. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised. He confirms he still has nightmares about them and could hardly sleep after just the first month. Well, at least he's mostly safe from Freddy Krueger. The movie explains that these tapes seem to be some kind of homemade erotic film for this guy, which is interesting, I guess. We're told that numerous bodies were found in the yard of the house when it was raided by the FBI, primarily women, but a few men and a 10-month child with their parents. The tapes were found in a closet and were shown just how large this collection is, as practically an entire hallway of them is focused on only one victim named Cheryl Dempsey. We're told some of the content of these tapes, namely that there is apparently content regarding balloons. We abruptly cut to a lady crawling across the floor and blowing a balloon, and then we hear the person recording is a male as the screen is heavily distorted while the lady tries to blow the balloon. Eventually, she starts sitting on it before our cameraman, quite aggressively, tells her to pop the balloon.
Yes! Sit on it!
We cut back as we see a room of new FBI investigators who are warned that some of them will quit after just one day due to the content that they will have to view. This guy's a better boss than Mr. Plus. I mean, there's 0 warnings or compensation pay to come with this video, so... We cut to the handheld format again, where the cameraman approaches a young girl sitting in her front yard. The screen distorts again, dude really needs a new camera, as he tries to interact with her. She seems hesitant to respond and says the right thing, which is that her parents said she can't talk to strangers. He tries to get her to talk to the camera and say that she's a happy, pretty little girl, to which she refuses. He tries to have her hold the camera before we hear a loud thud, and well, next thing we know, he's got another passenger in the vehicle. Yeah. We get an autopsy report of what is assumed to be the girl and the audio of the parents calling the police in a frenzy. The police, however, have a 24-hour cooldown and can't investigate despite there being blood in the front yard. How interesting. The parents explain that they never really recovered after this, as they beg for answers as to who would do this. We cut to the footage as we see the cameraman asking for a ride after his car won't start, so the couple agree to take him to a nearby gas station. I'd say this is quite scary because the only thing more terrifying than a serial killer are gas prices. Our drivers are named Jeanette and Frank, while the cameraman is named after my favorite hyena, Ed. Eventually, though, Ed crashes out and crashes the car, killing Frank while Jeanette screams. We get a close-up of Ed chloroforming her as they are then reported missing. The police investigate while complimenting his scheming. They note he's very organized in setting up the kill, but the kill itself is very disorganized. We see more footage of Jeanette in captivity as Ed tells her to wake up before we see something is stitched into her body, as our finest detectives get a little squeamish. The autopsy of her body reveals that Jeanette's body had a male head sewn into her stomach. As to who the other head is, it is unknown. Could be Frank's or maybe some unlucky soul named Francis. The police further investigate by collecting videos from gas stations along the couple's route. They found one that has the killer on it. Well, hello there, Aiden Pierce. The police confirm they found the second body at a Red House Tavern nearby. But the police noted that he was caught on footage saying the establishment's name before he even killed the couple. We get another report of a lady named Elizabeth who was killed, and the tapes regarding her death were found about 100 miles away from the body. Her head and hands were cut off with a circular saw, and her body parts were scattered throughout the state in different counties. It's also noted that due to the oh-so-beautiful bureaucracy, It's also noted that due to the oh-so-beautiful bureaucracy, the counties would probably take years before they'd be able to work out finding each body part. And that's in the best of scenarios, highlighting that the killer knows how to weaponize the system. The police also were unable to identify him due to his methods of butchering the corpses, despite the fact that he left videos behind of said butcherings. This guy really is the Riddler of this whole thing, committing crimes and leaving shit behind for the recognition. We move on to the next part of the movie, and well, this is where things take a turn, so ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts.
Really? Here we go. Buckle up. It's gonna be a bumpy one.
Ed follows a girl named Cheryl Dempsey home from school and listens in on her conversation with her boyfriend over the phone. We find out a bit of information about her. She's a good girl, loves her mama, loves Jesus in America too, crazy about Elvis, loves horses, and her boyfriend too. Nah, just kidding. She hates her mom, drinks beer, and well, I guess she loves her boyfriend, so there's that. Ed gets inside the house one night, takes in the scenery, and sneaks into her room. He must be a SpongeBob fan, considering he conducts a panty raid. Ugh. He nearly gets caught multiple times, but he maxed out his stealth stat. He hides in the closet as his target talks to her boyfriend. He emerges and, oh fuck, he's a theater kid. After some more creeping around, Ed beats down the boyfriend and chases Cheryl down. The camera gets thrown and we see those shadows fight before he goes back and finishes off the boyfriend. Yeah, this was definitely the most intense bit of the movie so far, so I hope you're still with me. The parents return and find the scene of the crime as we see Cheryl's friend. She confirms Cheryl always felt like someone was watching her. I always feel like somebody's watching me type shit. Cheryl is tied up as she begs for help while Ed taunts her and beats her. He forces her to say her name is now Slave. She fights back but eventually gives in. We then get told Cheryl's boyfriend had a pretty bad fate too, as he was basically cut lengthwise with his innards put up around the house like Christmas lights. This is why Halloween is better. His genitals were removed as well, which leads the police to believe that Cheryl was already dead. Later, they find, thanks to the tapes, that this was his intention. We get a small segment explaining what the deal with the mask is. It's explained that in the Renaissance days, there was an art form of theater called Commedia dell'arte. In it, actors would put on a mask of certain characters and were supposed to essentially give their take on the character. Kind of like how we have many different takes of Batman, but they all wear the same mask and have the same name. But back in those days, you couldn't brandish any weapons because people got so caught up in the character that they would essentially relinquish responsibilities for their actions. I guess Jared Leto's been around since the start. The mask Ed has adopted is the legendary Plague Doctor mask. As to why, well, he's a theater kid, alright? We're back with Cheryl, who is tied up again as Ed asks why she's crying. Just a theory, but she might be sad. Just a theory. Ed claims he killed Cheryl's family, as she calls Cap. Ed tells her to say she's happy he did it. Of course she refuses, so he dunks her head in a tub of water until she caves in again. He takes more of her individuality by claiming slaves don't have parents, therefore she cannot call them her parents. She's forced to declare her undying love. He then ties her up as she endlessly repeats that he is the master. The family is currently grieving, so Ed pays them a visit, to which his mother recognizes him once it is too late. Cheryl is tied up again as water is poured on her. She promises to do something for Ed once the gag is taken off. We cut to her in what I think is supposed to be a maid outfit, and she puts on a mask while repeating he is her master, and it pleases her to serve him. We're then told that as time went on, the media began to focus on Ed's actions, so he decides to flip the script. Newsreels play of more bodies being found as they warn prostitutes to stay off the streets. We see some footage of those who did not listen before we cut to this lovely footage.
Please disturb me. You are the master, please disturb me. You are the master, please.
It's revealed that prostitutes were being arrested and never heard from again, but the police didn't have any records of them being arrested. Quite strange. We see footage of Cheryl tied down as she tells a victim to not run as he won't like it. Ed ties the victim up while beating her down and blames Cheryl before whispering into her ear. Cheryl is untied and slices the girl's neck while crying uncontrollably. The autopsy confirms that the bodies were found with similar injuries as well as, well, signs of necrophilia occurring. We get an interview with local expert Ted Bundy who gives insight on Ed's killings. Basically, Bundy confirms that necrophilia can occur long after the pulse of the maggots occurs, and the body is beyond comprehension of decomposition, meaning these bodies are probably being sodomized for longer than we could ever want to imagine, as evidence of his return was found on each body. We cut back to Ed's daily life as he's visited by Girl Scouts selling cookies. He invites them, they refuse. He claims he's an officer, they don't refuse, and now we're sitting on Ed's couch. He gives them coke, no, not the kind you're thinking, and asks if they rode their bikes. The children give away where they live as screams below start to echo. Ed claims it's just the TV, probably watching Love Island. He claims he can't get any cookies and that he has a raccoon downstairs. The girls are smart and call him out on his BS, to which he asks if they want to see. One of the girls is rightfully scared, to which he shockingly lets them go. After they depart, we see under the table was Cheryl the whole time. Ed tells her that she purposefully left the chains on the victim loose and that it was her fault. Cops end up finding a glass with DNA on it. They match it to a man named Jim Foley, partner of one of the cops. Jim was apparently in the area for every killing and didn't have a good alibi. He refused all plea bargains and was eventually found guilty. Guilty in turn means death sentence. Refused a prayer or a final statement, and we never find out his last meal. So the jig is up, news is out, we finally found him, right? Cut to credits, play Linkin Park as the killer is executed. Maybe we go home, eat sushi, and watch SpongeBob. Oh, trust me, nothing is ever simple. Later on, a map was sent to the police with a mark that said, "Missed one." After further investigation, Foley is found incident. Well, it sucks he died, but we can at least catch the real guy and clear his name up, right? 9/11 happens. No, I'm not kidding, that's actually what happens. 9/11 ends up taking over the news that day, which sees Foley's pardon now pushed down with little coverage. So, did the killer articulate 9/11? Nah, no, it was Bush anyways.
Now watch this drive.
We cut back to a video of a British woman whose car broke down, must be a Tesla, as Ed pulls up claiming he is a cop. He tells her he can get her to a nearby gas station since there's a killer on the loose. She gets in the backseat and we're off to the nearest Circle K. He misses his turn and asks the lady why she called him an officer, because, surprise, surprise, Ed isn't a cop. Oh my god, Ed is the origami killer. He scolds her for assuming he is an officer, which is odd considering he's only driving a cop car. He tells her he's going to pull over and, well, do what he does, if that makes sense. The lady starts screaming hysterically as he locks her inside and grabs his gear. She begs for help and bangs on the window before we cut to a very fun little scene. We see a lady tied up with her mouth taped closed. In the corner, Ed does his best impression of a bear before he's right next to her. The lady is trying to scream as she can barely make a sound, and the tape ends as Ed stabs her throat while she starts to drool out blood and bleed to death. The police then explain it's impossible to get a read on this guy in terms of his description. His kills are so sporadic and random, they can't figure anything out. One will suggest he's an idiot, others say he's a genius. Some suggest he might be in the FBI, others say he could barely be a cashier. There's practically no way to identify him. Eventually, we are told everything was used to raid his house. These dudes probably called in the Rainbow Six crew with all the shit we've seen. The investigator confirms they didn't really find him, as instead the location was given by him and he wasn't even there. They had 0 fingerprints in the house as well, and inside the house they discover Cheryl Dempsey, locked in a wooden box, still dressed up. Cheryl is recovered with a medical report basically confirming she was in horrific condition. Her bones were repeatedly broken. There were signs of repeated and chronic sexual assault, as well as torture, and things that even a doctor would not say out loud. It is then explained Cheryl has experienced terrible pain for so long she couldn't function without it, as she was even torturing herself when no one was looking. Eventually they managed to get an interview with her, but it isn't all that informative. Cheryl is now speaking very quietly and doesn't seem to have any independence. She repeats that she doesn't know what she's supposed to say. We see her hand has been removed and she claims that Ed loved her, claiming one day he'll come back for her. I guess that's one perk of being a wallflower. 2 weeks later, Cheryl commits suicide, with her note proclaiming her undying love to her master. We then see Cheryl's body was stolen, assumed to be by Ed. The police claim he's probably moved somewhere else, but is still killing. Another agent claims around 27 tapes were missing, and he wonders why, be it that there's too much information given in them, perhaps they're too special to him, or maybe they are somehow worse than anything else shown today. I shudder at the thought. The cop, however, claims that if the movie ever goes to the theater, then the killer will have to be there, and they will be watching as many screenings as they can. The last image shows footage of a younger and happier Cheryl Dempsey, before we go to the credits that actually pay respect to the characters of the film. There is a post-credits scene, but it's just one last fright. Ed basically tells a new victim if she blinks, she will die. The victim tries her best and starts to panic before we cut to black and play Linkin Park. That was quite a lot to get through, but here we are. We survived. Give yourself a pat on the back. The movie may only be an hour and a half roughly, but for the most part, it makes the most of it. For being low budget, they managed to craft a killer that was horrifying in concept and execution. I'd say the acting, for the most part, was pretty stellar. Some of the agents were a little awkward, but the rest were top tier, in particular, the victims. The fear they portray is haunting to look at, as well as their screams in agony are absolutely disturbing. I will never forget the cop car scene with how well everything we hear was executed. It also managed to do its documentary impressions very well. I believe it was actually one time accidentally screened with audiences being told it was an actual documentary. Audiences later, of course, discovered it was fake, which caused a bit of a stir, especially since the director is under contract couldn't do any Q&As, as the studio was trying to do a unique marketing campaign for the film. It's a fun little story, but goes to show how some people could have probably mistaken this film for an actual documentary. The horror on display is good for the most part, but I can understand why some people wouldn't like it, as it's quite disturbing content. Even the non-gory stuff is hard to watch. The scene where he's talking to the Girl Scouts had me on the edge of my seat. The movie had this level of intensity around the tapes when there was nothing wild happening on screen, as we knew what this guy's intentions were. And the more we saw, the more horrified we got for everyone who appeared on screen. The movie had plenty of these scenes, which made the horror all the more terrifying, especially when it discussed the darker events unfolding off screen. But this is also where a gripe of mine starts to come in. Obviously, we here at 4Plus are no stranger to wild content, but I feel at times this was just a bit blah, if that makes sense. Not in the boomer shaking their fist at the youth kind of way, but more how I felt at times it seemed like the creators were just trying too hard. It started to just turn into one depravity after the other without any end in sight. Obviously, the intent was to create a true monster of a villain, but after a point, it just seemed like so much edgelord content I started to get bored of it. It's like watching Marilyn Manson music videos. The first 3 are scary, and after a bit, you realize he's just trying to disturb you, especially since they started to overplay this dude being a criminal mastermind after a point. It started to get anime villain levels of insanity of how much this dude planned and perfectly executed literally every detail. I think another facet of this is that we don't really know much about the killer's motivations here. On one hand, yes, it does make him more scary, as there's no way to find out who he will strike next, and now it's harder to find any weaknesses in him. I guess I was more so wondering what the purpose of all this was. Was Cheryl Dempsey actually the love of his life in some twisted way? Was this all some play to him? Was he killing prostitutes for incel reasons? It's a bit unclear and half-baked, but again, one could argue that just makes him scarier. I just felt that there was a missed opportunity here to question stuff like art, love, or something deeper, as opposed to he just is, if that makes any sense. And if you disagree, well, I'm just a dude on the internet, so take that as you will. Overall, I give this movie an 8 out of 10. It managed to have my eyes locked on screen for its runtime and provide plenty of horrifying content and imagery that I will probably never forget. I just wish the story was a bit better and there was more thought put into the themes of the movie. Well, that was an adventure to say the least. We here at 4Plus continue to thank you for your support of all the horrific things we watch for you guys. It sounds generic, but each and every one of you is special to us, and we love hearing what you guys think about our content. We hope you enjoyed the video, and we hope to see you next week for another round of terror. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I see someone's car just broke down outside. I'm gonna go lend a hand.